So what do we mean by meetings? The meeting of the minds, the stakeholders, they need to meet. Now let's talk about the last piece over here. We can see the project charter, which I talked about, authorization for the project, so on and so forth, and then the assumption log. Now, what I'm going to do is allow you ask any questions that you may have about the minutia we've been looking at. You see, like this stuff over here, the project charter, the assumption log, I want you to ask questions.
So I'm relying on you to ask your questions now. It's never too late to ask a question when your buddy Phil is here to help you. So we got a few questions here in our chat. I can see we've got a question from Ali. Ali says, needs this audio. So Ali, you know, if you go to the Praizion.com website, you can actually get audio of 20 hours. Just go to the More Products and look for our downloadable audio, Project Management Audio Digest. Ali says, updating project management should be through the CCB. I think you mean the project management plan. Well, that is somewhat correct, but just remember, you do not always have a CCB on the project. In some projects, the PMI say, you don't need to have a CCB. Let me show you where this is, okay? So, same book, same good channel, 4.5 in the PMBOK guide. I want to read something for you really quick. It says on page 115, although changes may be initiated verbally, they should be recorded in written form and entered into the change management and or configuration management system. Now that's a long way of saying some sort of change log, okay? It says change requests may require information on estimated project schedule impacts and estimated cost impacts prior to approval. But watch this. It says, whenever a change request may impact any of the project baselines, a formal integrated change control process is always required. It did not say a CCB is always required. It said a formal integrated change control process is always required. Every documented change request needs to be either approved, deferred, or rejected by a responsible individual. By a responsible individual. It did not say CCB, Ali, so take note of that. Usually the project sponsor or project manager. Usually. It didn't even say usually the CCB. Because, a lot of people, when they read the PMBOK guide or when they start down this PMP exam trail, they're like, CCB, CCB, CCB. No. Come on now. How much money do companies have to put a CCB in place? You have 1 hour of meetings with 10 CCB members. You multiply 10 hours by whatever their rate is. You think management has got time for that? No, they don't. They don't have the time. They don't have the money. So you need to put things in their proper perspective. With a PMBOK guide, you do not always need a CCB. Sometimes it could be the project manager. Sometimes it could be the project sponsor. And that's exactly what PMI are alluding to over here. Let's keep reading. So every documented change request, we're on page 115. For those of you asking for the page, it's page 115. All right. It says, usually the project sponsor or project manager, the responsible individual will be identified in the project management plan or by organizational procedures. Now watch this. When required, we're about 7 lines from the end of page 115. It says, when required. It's so important because on the PMP exam, you're not going to see CCB for the answer for every single change question. You're going to have project manager, you're going to have project sponsor, you're going to have other people. So be aware, it says, when required, the perform integrated change control process includes a change control board, CCB, which is a formally chartered group responsible for reviewing, evaluating, approving, deferring, or rejecting changes to the project and for recording and communicating such decisions. So what is PMI telling you? They are trying to tell you that you do not always need a CCB, but when required, you better have one in place. Now, when you have your CCB in place, be aware that one of the major outputs that they should contribute to is, of course, the change log. Now, it's unfortunate that the change log has been kind of pushed into project documents, updates, but it's really a major output that you get from performing integrated change control. Okay, so don't lose sight of that. And the last thing I saw here was a question from Christopher. And it's, please, why do approved change requests serve as an input in control quality? That's a brilliant question. So an approved change request is a change request that has been approved by the approving authority. What are you going to do with that change request? You're going to carry it out, right? You're going to put it into action. You're going to either make an amendment, you're going to do corrective action, preventive action, defect repair, or updates, right? Now, when you do that, you should ensure that those change requests that have been approved have actually been carried out properly. And that's what we do in control quality. In control quality, we want to make sure that indeed the change request was carried out the way it should have been, because you know you're using inspection. So as you are inspecting, what are you looking at? You are looking at the approved change request and saying, does it match? Yes, it does. All right, so I hope that clarifies things for you, Christopher. I saw another question or so up there. Let's see. So shout out to Mr. Willie, who came aboard our program. It's good to have you on the program. Thank you for joining. A shout out to Carlos, who joined earlier and said changes to the project charter are made by the sponsor, or can the PM make changes to the charter? So I said, typically on projects, as talked about in the PMBOK guide, any changes to the charter are not explicitly mentioned. You don't see project charter updates. But the PMI lets you know that this could happen once. In other words, your project charter is a one-time thing or at predefined points per phase, per iteration, whatever that looks like. But real world versus PMBOK, they don't always completely flush. So when we talk about the project charter, it encapsulates the authorized work that has been agreed upon in a contract. Now, if that is no longer accurate, it would be senseless not to change what you have in that document. It should change. But the PMI are not big on stressing that this does change. Now, I'm not talking about minor scope changes. I'm talking about where there's a major scope change that the original thing you set out to do doesn't even make sense. You could consider revising it, but what does the project charter do? It's not a contract, and it's not a project management plan. So it authorizes the project. That's pretty much what it does. However, if changes are being made, they're being made to plans. They're being made to overarching things like a contract may have an update. So it's important that we don't get, we don't lose sight of the fact that in the real world, you could update a charter, but in the world of the PMBOK guide, it is not even mentioned once. They just talk about develop project charter could be a one-time thing or could be at predefined points. All right. So I hope that explains to you, Carlos. And then we've got Esther, who says, why the requirements management plan an input to conduct procurements? And I said the people selling, they need to know how the requirements should be managed, or if there are any peculiar demands on how those requirements are going to be managed. It's not the requirements, it's the requirements management plan that the question was about. All right, my friends, any further questions before we go back to integration full steam ahead? Any final questions? Because we pretty much did, a little bit of the curriculum. Then I dunked you straight into these live questions that came in on YouTube. So if you have any questions right now about the PMP exam, about studying, about the programs that we offer, I would like to answer those right now. You've probably read in the chat that way, where I said, that way, right there, all that chat. I said, if you are thinking of getting PMP certified, you better do it before July 1st, 2020, because ridiculous changes are happening. Can't even keep them straight. People are wondering, what on earth is PMI doing? Seriously? We don't even understand what is happening anymore. And I'm talking about providers of education. They're clueless. They don't know. The goalpost has moved so many times, we don't even know what to do anymore. So if you are thinking of getting certified, get certified where there is a lot of historical information to go off. Recently, the PMI put out their 200 questions mock exam based on real past questions, which a lot of people have been taking and are pulling their hair out. Oh my goodness, I didn't get an 80. Is this curtains for me? No, it's not. Don't worry about all that. That is not the real passing score, in my opinion. Otherwise, a lot of people will be failing that thing. So it is a good challenge. The questions are legit. They are real questions. They are brutal as ever. They are horrible as ever. They stink as ever. But try to learn from what PMI has given you. I'm amazed that they're giving people that on a platter. You know, it's meant to be for those folks out of India only. But nonetheless, I'm amazed. Some other people have been accessing them, but, you know, I'm just amazed that they're, I don't know whether to call it generosity. I don't know if they're using us as a scientific experiment of sorts. I don't know. But take advantage of that mock exam that they put out. Seriously. If you're out of India and you haven't taken advantage of that mock exam, you haven't followed that link that was shared a few weeks ago, please do it. Do it, do it, do it. Okay? You're welcome, Christopher. I'm happy that you found that to be useful. Anyone else got any questions before we go back to integration? Any other questions or concerns? All right. In that case, we will be heading back to integration in the next minute. And I'll just say, those of you taking the pilot exam, I wish you all the very best. If you have not spent time looking at the PMP crossover map, I'm going to chat a link into you right now so that you are aware that there is a crossover map that you should be looking at. And actually, those of you taking the current PMP exam, you could very well still benefit from this crossover map. You could. So let's pull the crossover map across so that you can see what I'm talking about. It's a really great tool for anyone taking the pilot exam to put things in their proper perspective. So here we go. Here is a crossover map right here, okay? If you are taking the pilot exam, go through not just the tasks, but with a fine-tooth comb, all of the enablers. Try and make sense out of them. And also marry them up with the old ECO. All of these things are only going to help you get better for your exam. And I'm going to put this in the chat box. And in a second, we will go back to our instruction on project integration management. So here we go. Here's the link. It is a bit of a long link, isn't it? Very, very long. There you go. All right. So in the absence of any questions, we'll go straight back to our project integration management training. All right, Phil. Over to you, buddy.
All right. I hope you're enjoying the class so far. Now it's time to go deeper into the PMBOK guide dregs. That's what I call it, the PMBOK guide dregs. That's right. We are currently on develop to the very first process in the PMBOK guide. Now, if you look behind me, you see stuff that you might recognize, maybe from the world, maybe from what you've heard about the PMBOK guide. Well, we got to go deeper into this stuff. So why don't you follow me to chapter 4 to develop project charter. Come on, follow along, open up the book, whatever's left of it, that is. Now let's go to 4.1. I want to show you a few things in 4.1, okay? Now, before you get to 4.1, follow me to page 71, because I want to talk about the two perspectives to the PMBOK guide. There are two perspectives to the PMBOK guide processes. Every one of the 49 processes has two perspectives to it. The first perspective is pretty much what you see behind me, and that is from page 71 and section 4.1 on page 71. You see it's broken out in section 4.1 through 4.7, but 4.1, you see the following things behind me, don't you? Take a look at them. Business case, you see that? Agreements, enterprise environmental factors, and organizational process assets. You see that? That is in the very first box. Then the tools and techniques, you can see behind me, expert judgment, data gathering, interpersonal and team skills, and meetings. You see that right here, all this stuff right here. That is a high-level view of this process. Now, last but not least, you can take a look at that side. You'll see the project charter and the assumption log. You see that stuff? That is the high-level view. Now, for every process, there are two views: high-level view, low-level view. In the introduction to each process, I'm just going to be telling you casually what each of these things is at a high level. But then we got to go into the low-level stuff, all right? So that's how we're going to roll with this. Are you ready?